Hey, I'm Alex Macklin from Board Game Con. Today I'm reviewing Cascadia Alpine Lakes from Flatout Games. Cascadia Alpine Lakes is a 1 to 4 player tile placement game based on the game Cascadia from Flatout Games. This is a prototype, all rules and components of exchange, and I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below. Cascadia Alpine Lakes is a standalone game. This is not an expansion, it is a new version of Cascadia, building upon the same mechanisms, but being very, very different in how it actually plays out. To that end, I will walk you through how this plays as if you don't know Cascadia, because that way it'll be a lot simpler, and if you do know Cascadia, the differences will be pretty evident pretty quickly. But in this game, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be drafting tiles from this display, and you're going to be scoring based off of certain scoring criteria, mainly on these cards over here. Basically, you have terrain habitats over here, and those are going to each have a scoring criteria, the way they score, and those are going to interact with these wildlife tokens to define how they score. If you are familiar with Cascadia, this is already different because it's not the animals that score, it's the terrains that score based on the animals in them. But what you're going to do on your turn is you're going to look at this display over here, and you're going to select one pairing of a token plus a token. Well, I guess a terrain token plus a wildlife token. So for example, I could take this over here, and then I could place this down over here on my board, connecting it to my current display, and then placing this token anywhere that can take it. In this case, I'll happen to be placing it on the token that I took this turn, but you could place it elsewhere. So for example, when we refill the display over here, we're going to take out new tokens, putting them there. I'll also say that because I place this down on this token, whenever you have a singular token that it can go there, you're going to get a nature token, and those are either worth points or alternatively can be used to give you some flexibility in the game. Alternatively, on a turn, I could also do something like this. I can take this tile over here, placing it over here, and then taking the matching token and placing it somewhere else. It does not have to go on the tile you just took. It can go anywhere in which there's a matching area to place out that token. Again, we'll refill the display, and the next player takes their turn. Basically, turns are going to go round and around with you drafting a terrain token and a wildlife token, putting it into your own personal smorgasbord over here. This is your own personal display. Everyone will have their own separate display over here, and you're going to do that 20 times, adding 20 tiles and 20 wildlife to your display until eventually you get to the game end and score 4 things. But before we do that, you also are building up. This is again a big difference from regular Cascadia, where you're only building out. In this game, you're going to be building up as well as building out. What that looks like is you can take a token over here. I'm going to take these and I'm going to place this down over here on top of a spot, and I'm going to place the animal there down on it on level 2, again taking a nature token. There's also fun things you can do, which I'll have to go ahead and make sure we actually have the tiles to do this, but you can actually build underneath an animal to raise that animal up as well. So for example, right here with this over here, I can take this token over here and I'm going to place this and I'm going to put it, and then let's do a few things. For small rules over here, because I have 3 of the same wildlife token, I'm going to clear those. That's an optional clear. If you have 4 of the same kind, you must clear. 3 of the same kind is going to be an optional clear. And then you're going to take these tiles out instead, and that's going to be helpful because I'm able to show you some more things right now. I'm going to take this tile over here, I'm going to put it down here, and as long as there's a matching type, I can build up underneath an animal. You have to have a matching type. You cannot move an animal to somewhere where it wouldn't be able to go, which means as soon as you place an animal, a wildlife down the board, you're kind of locking in what can go in that spot. You can still switch terrain, but it has to be accommodating and friendly to that animal. And then I'm going to take this token over here and place it down over here. You also can use these tokens, these nature tokens, to wipe the wildlife tokens over here, replace them with new ones, or alternatively, let's pretend that it had been like this over here, you can spend it to take a mismatched pairing. I could take this terrain, spend that, and take a mismatched pairing, putting it down and getting it right back because again, it has that specific type over there. Then you're going to go ahead and draw new tiles to replace it, and that's basically what you're doing. You're going to repeat this process of drawing a token, a wildlife token, plus a tile for terrain, adding them to your tableau over here until you've done that 20 times, at which point you'll score for a few different things. This is where it's probably helpful to have a rule sheet, so I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these so you can see how things score. At the end of the game, you're going to score for a few different things. You're going to score, first of all, for the various terrain types over here. You're going to look at each of the 3 terrain types plus the lakes and get scoring for all of those. Each of these cards is different. This is a good time to note that you have a ton of variety to the game. So all of these cards over here, you're going to pick one for each terrain type, add those, and that's going to be the way that terrain type scores, which means when you're playing this puzzle, what you're trying to add to your board is going to be very different every single time you play, especially with the combination of those cards. So in this case, the forests are going to be scoring based on having unique corridors with unique wildlife in them at a different level. Meaning in this game, every section of terrain is called a corridor. This is one forest corridor, this is one glacier corridor, and this is one glacier corridor. I also have a meadow corridor here and a meadow corridor here. Each separate area is going to be a separate corridor. In this case, this forest corridor over here, and obviously this is not the end of the game, so it's not going to be an ideal scoring, but you'll see how it plays out. This card over here says if you have different terrain, if you have different wildlife tokens at different heights, then you score. So I have a goat over here at level 1, a puma at level 2, and whatever this is, a beaver at level 3. I should also note, if I misname the animals at any point, I don't actually know what they are. But a goat, a puma, and a beaver at level 1, 2, and 3. That's 3 unique animal types at different levels. And because I have one forest corridor doing that, that's 10 points. If I'd done that 3 times, I would get 34 points. Over here on meadows, I'm going to score for having different animal types touching each other. In this case, I have separate areas, meaning they're not touching. Let's go ahead and just add one more just so I can show you something else over here. This particular card over here wants different animal types touching each other in the meadow. So I have 1 over here, which would be 2 points. In this meadow, I have a 1, and then I have a 2, which would be 2 and 5. But you also get a bonus point per unique group size. So I have a size 1 and a size 2, which means I get a 2 bonus points over there for having different group sizes. That's going to be the way meadows score. Meadows are usually the most flexible as far as how things can go in there, but also are usually the lowest scoring because it's the most flexible. Then we have glaciers over here. Glaciers are going to want the same animal type at different levels, a grouping of at least 2. So for example, in this glacier over here, I have a level 1 and a level 2 bird. And in this glacier, I have a level 1 and a level 2, whatever this mouse-like thing is. Well, actually, it's level 3 and a level 4, I believe it is. So level 3 and level 4 of those, which means I have 2 spots, which is going to be 12 points. That's what I'm going to score for glaciers over here. That's going to be how these all score. There's also lakes. Lakes score based on their level. So this is going to be a 1-point lake. And if it is surrounded fully by tiles all around it, you double that point. So level 1 would be 2 points. A level 3 would be go from 3 points to being 6 points if fully surrounded. Then we have the various animal tokens over here. These score based on their height. You get 2 points for every token that is at level 3 or higher. So I already have a bunch over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tokens over here that are at level 3 or higher. I'll get 2 points for each of those. There's also going to be a majority scoring for having the most tokens at a higher level, and that's going to be different. It's going to score differently depending on the player count, so check the rules for that. But basically, you not just want to have tokens at a high level, you want to have more than your opponents to get those extra bonus points. And then lastly, the nature tokens are going to reward you points as well. 1 point for every unused nature tokens. This spot over here is for a module that I personally love playing with, but honestly it's a little brain burning over here. You're going to select cards, 1 of each type, and you're going to add these cards to the game as something that scores. Again, we have an absolute ton of variety of these cards, so a whole lot you can play with, and each of these card types is going to give you a different thing that you're going for over here. This one is playing favorites. This one's going to give you 1 point per animal of the type that you have the most of. So on my board, I would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because that's the animal I have the most of. It really rewards you for leaning in to a single animal type. Leaning into glaciers and meadows combined with that, this changes the game over here. With playing favorites in play, forest is slightly less of a good card relative to these other two that allow you to lean into the same type as much as possible. We have crag and cliffs over here. Scores for each hexagon with a cliff 2 levels above at least 1 adjacent tile. You get 1 hexagon for those. So you're trying to build these separations, these larger gaps as you move up. And then we have stepping up. Score for 1, 2, and 3 height steps in a line of the same habitat type. I don't think I have that over here at all, but yeah, I don't have it over here right now. But if you had a section of terrain where it's 1, 2, and 3 stepping up, you would score 3 points for that line. These cards are going to give you point modifiers that are going to make it very, very thinky, because you're already trying to balance everything in this game while building up, while building out, and then suddenly, in addition to the 3 terrain types and the fact that you're also focusing on the animal height, you now have extra cards that are giving you something else to try to be mindful of. That is how you play a game of Cascadia Alpine Lakes. There's a lot more to this. There's a lot of challenge modes, and these things I should note are not in the prototype, but generally in their games, Flat Out Games often gives you extra things to try to do in those games. Various scenarios, challenges, solo modes, all these different things that give you a lot more ways to really push yourself as you explore them, and those will be extra things in there. But with that, I'm going to go into my review of this game, of what I like, don't like, conceal as not liking, all of that. I will start by saying that Cascadia, The game that this is based off of, and the game that this is iterating from, is an absolute 5 out of 5 game for me. I love Cascadia, and I have so much fun playing it. I'll also say I have not been shy about subsequent games in the Cascadia line of games that they didn't impress me quite as much. Cascadia Junior, I didn't find that great, and my kids didn't either. Cascadia the expansion, I thought was nice, but it didn't really impress me with the mechanics. It was just nice to have more variability to the game. I wasn't blown away by it. I say that because I love Cascadia Alpine Lakes, and I do want you to know that I don't just automatically love everything Cascadia. I have been very vocal when Cascadia things didn't impress me. Cascadia, although I will say, the Cascadia Roll and Write, those are pretty decent. I like those, but I gave those a 4 out of 5. They're good. I like them. I still own them. But Cascadia has given a lot of other things to this universe, and Cascadia Alpine Lakes is the first one since the original that is delivered to this extent. I love what this game is doing in so many ways. The general point scoring optimization thing over here that you're working with as far as taking different things to try to score is a satisfying puzzle, and I enjoy many games when they do that, but one of the reasons I've always enjoyed Cascadia so much is the sheer degree of variety to the experience. You're not just always trying to draft for the same core concept. Sure, some things are the same. Animal Height's always going to be the same game to game, but the rest of it's going to drastically change. These 3 cards, and I will say it is a step down, that those 3 cards are 3 degrees of variability instead of 5 degrees of variability, so you have slightly less variability there, but that's more than made up for by the fact that these cards over here really mess with your brain. Having 3 different cards over here, plus 3 different cards over here, is going to give you a ton of combinational variability that is really going to make this a puzzle every single time you play it. You'll learn the core concepts. You'll learn how to build up. You'll learn how to build out. You'll learn how to replace animals. You're learning how to do all of this and to get a little better at how to build out your terrain. But what you're trying to do and how you're trying to juggle it all and balance it all, that's going to constantly change. The game is fairly easy to teach. It's fairly quick to play. It plays great at multiplayer, and the solo is so satisfying. The amount of games I have that play competitively multiplayer and then cooperatively, well, not cooperatively, but solo as well, usually I find that I have a strong preference for one or the other. And when it comes to Cascadia, as well as Cascadia Alpine Lakes, I don't have a strong preference. I find these solo challenges to be, and this is where I'm projecting a bit over here, the solo puzzle here is already good. They don't have the solo scenarios that I love in Cascadia as well as some of their other games. And so that I'm just assuming will be good, but I haven't actually played them. But the basic solo puzzle I already enjoy, and I assume the challenges will hopefully be difficult enough that I actually find them challenging. Otherwise, I won't enjoy them quite as much. But overall, the solo versus the cooperative, it just gives you 2 different ways to play the game that are both thoroughly mentally satisfying while being incredibly accessible and giving you all, again, that extra goody stuff you get at the end of, like, play the game while doing this and check off a little box. And you get to, like, literally write in your rulebook as you mark off this little progression, which, again, if you're not interested in writing your rulebook, you can probably print out a sheet. I just read in my rulebook for this game because this is a keeper for me. But it's really just a mentally stimulating game. And I find Alpine Lakes is much more mentally stimulating, for better and for worse, although for me it's mostly for the better. It is trippy trying to think through. You used to just build out and now you're suddenly building up in this game, and it totally changes the way you engage with this. You have to be mindful as far as how you lock things off. You have more tile freedom because every time you take a tile, you're actually taking 2 compared to the original Cascadia, you're taking a single 1 tile, but that gives you a lot more freedom to start building things, but you build up, which starts restricting you, and you have to balance all of that while trying to think through when to lock into a wildlife type, and then when you're trying to go for these different terrains and how they're all going to score. It is very mentally challenging to juggle it all, and again, adding these cards, I don't recommend it for your first game or 2, because the game's plenty of challenging as it is, but once you get a little used to it, adding these really gives you a lot more to juggle, and in a very satisfying puzzle that I find thoroughly compelling. So for me, this is just a clean game, easy to play, quick to play, tons of variability, very mentally stimulating, plays well competitive, plays well solo. It's a whole lot to like. As far as things I don't like in the game, I don't know if I have that much. The closest thing I have to something I don't like is in the original Cascadia, the wildlife tokens had the scoring cards, and the terrain was very vanilla and basic. In this Cascadia, the terrain have the scoring cards, and the wildlife tokens are very vanilla and basic, and I don't know if this is just because, it's probably because I'm used to Cascadia, but it feels like I almost wish the wildlife had more character to them as opposed to being completely immaterial. What matters is the distinction of either unique or the same, but they're immaterial. It doesn't really matter whether you have one type or another, it just matters that you have multiple types or the same type, depending on what cards are going to reward you for different things. And that I kind of miss. I miss the characters having their own character. I don't think it's actually a critique against the game, I think this is me just being rooted into how I play original Cascadia, but the terrain types in original Cascadia, they had their own scoring based on adjacency, based on clumpings, and that just felt good. Over here, I wish the character, the animals, the wildlife had more of a character to them because it feels weirder to not. But again, I think I'm mostly just being rooted in original Cascadia. As far as I can see, others not liking, the biggest thing here, this is a step up in complexity. At least in my opinion, at least with the people I've played it with, this is a step up in complexity compared to original Cascadia. I think the original Cascadia was a more welcoming game. This is a little bit more brain burner. There's a lot more going on as far as how you try to make it all work together, especially if you add these cards. Again, I really encourage you not to play with these at first until people are comfortable with what's already happening, but it certainly is more mentally brain burning compared to the original. So while I think Cascadia made for a great gateway game, this is a little bit gateway plus in my opinion. I think people who aren't, I think people who are gateway gamers will likely still enjoy this, but it'll definitely be a little bit more trippy trying to make it all work, and that you might experience that frustration of not being able to make it all work as well. So just one thing to be mindful of, I think it's a weight class higher than the original Cascadia. As far as final thoughts on Cascadia Alpine Lakes, I hinted this to a degree when I mentioned earlier my opinion of the various Cascadia games, but I love this one. I wasn't sure. I was very excited for Alpine Lakes because I'm excited for anything Cascadia, but because of the fact that everything since the original game has either been a little disappointing, or in the case of the Roll'n'Rights, they're good, but not as good, I was excited for this while being sure that the original Cascadia was still going to be where it's at for me. And I really like this one. This is a 5 out of 5 for me. This is everything I like about Cascadia, but it's more challenging to make it all work, and it's more variable because of the combinations. I don't know if it's more variable because you had 5 cars for wildlife before, and now you have 3 plus these 3, but these 3 really add so much to the gameplay that it really... The challenge here is very present. The building up, I love that building up. I've seen other games do it. This is, I guess because it's built in the Cascadia system, it to me is the most fun. It is very trippy, very challenging, very, very rewarding. I like this game a lot. And if you like the original Cascadia and don't mind something that's a little bit more thinky, then I definitely recommend Cascadia Alpine Lakes. As far as other game recommendations, the first and most obvious is going to be Cascadia. Check out Cascadia. I think it's fantastic. I think it's the #1 rated abstract on Board Game Geek. I have to double check that, but well-deserved. One of my favorite abstracts, if not... I don't think of it as an abstract as much. I know it's abstract. I don't think of it as much. It's one of my favorite games. It's a 5 out of 5. I adore Cascadia. And if you want a game that rewards you for building up, check out Acropolis. Acropolis is another game that has tile laying and point scoring optimization, has you building up. I thoroughly enjoy it and recommend it. The one criticism I have is the base game. I find that the scoring doesn't really change much game to game. So while I really like what it's doing, it's not really as variable as far as the experience it delivers, but still worth a try. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.